Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're your shortcut to getting, well, properly informed. We dig into complex sources, wrestle with them a bit, and pull out the really interesting stuff for you.
And today, yeah, we're diving into something really unique. It's the Lost Books of the Odyssey by Zachary Mason.
Exactly.
Hmm.
So this is not the Odyssey you might remember from school. If you think you know Odysseus, the clever hero trying to get home, well, maybe think again.
Hmm.
Our mission today is to unpack these other versions, these lost books, and find some really surprising ideas, totally different takes on myth, memory, who we are, fate even, all from this text.
It's fascinating, really. It challenges what we think is, fixed about these old stories. Get ready for some genuinely strange twists.
Okay, let's jump in. We have to start with the return home, right? That's fundamental to the Odyssey. But Mason's version, it just throws you off balance immediately. Imagine getting back 20 years gone,
Yeah.
and the house looks right, the gates mended, smoke from the chimney. You sneak in, sword ready, thinking, finally I'm home.
And there's that instant of, relief, right? The source describes it vividly. You see someone you think is Penelope, an old man by the fire.
She sees you, cries out, runs over, welcome home. For just a second, it all feels right.
But then, that dawning horror. The source makes it clear this isn't Penelope, it's not his hall, it's not even Ithaca.
Just a vengeful illusion, some
Mhm.
god playing tricks.
Exactly, a malevolent god. And suddenly, home isn't just a place anymore. It's tied completely to who's there, to recognition. And when that gets twisted, reality just crumbles. The real Ithaca, it's elsewhere.
Wow. So that first big idea then is that our whole sense of home, even ourselves, it's pretty fragile. It depends on things staying stable.
Absolutely. It hangs on the people, the place matching what you remember. And Mason just pulls that rug out right at the start.
And it doesn't stop there. There's another return later in the source. Odysseus lands, disguised as nobody.
Right, the classic alias.
But Ithaca is weird, quiet, timid. And his hall isn't full of those, rowdy suitors. It's young gentlemen sort of orbiting this taller, kind of predatory Penelope.
Which immediately changes the vibe, doesn't it? It's not just reclaiming his place from thugs. It
Yeah.
feels darker. Maybe Penelope herself has changed, or the threat is coming from inside somehow.
And this Penelope, she's sharp. The text says she basically sees right through his disguise. Says something like, I swear it's true, or I am not nobody.
Ooh, unnerving.
And his big test, right?
Yeah.
The bed. Ask him about moving the bed. It fails. She doesn't react like the real Penelope should.
Which really hammers home this theme, right? Recognition isn't a given. Those markers of identity, we rely on shared secrets. Even scars, they can be unreliable here.
Totally. The classic Odyssey is packed with those, aha, it's you moments. Mason seems to be asking, well, what if they just don't work?
Yeah, what if they break down? And the boar scar, that's another fascinating piece of this. In one bit, a scar identifies as so-called Odysseus's to the narrator, who might be this other assassin character. But then later, Odysseus wakes up after this really strange night, and the source says he finds that same scar on his own thigh.
Whoa. So is it proof? Or is it something that just appears? Like reality itself is bending?
Exactly, that ambiguity. Maybe identity isn't fixed, marked by one scar, one history. Maybe it's more like a story that can change, or even a physical thing that shifts with the story being told.
And that strange night you mentioned, in the woods, that's maybe one of the wildest bits in the whole source. Odysseus is uneasy, wakes up, and there's this taller, green-eyed Penelope.
Mm-hmm.
She leads him into the woods, vanishes. He feels fur brushing my shoulder like an animal transformation. And this encounter, he calls it their marriage.
It's so primal, so far from a normal reunion. It connects marriage to something wild, maybe monstrous, beneath the surface of civilization.
And the morning after is just
Mhm.
chilling. He walks out, the courtyard's clean swept, maids are weeping, there's this trail of blood droplets from a sack. And then the other Penelope shows up. Shorter, pretty, smiling, welcoming him home like nothing's amiss.
Mm.
Well, the maids are just scrubbing furiously behind her back.
That contrast is incredibly disturbing. It's like Mason is showing us how completely different, contradictory realities can just exist side by side in the same story.
Right, the violent, weird marriage, the evidence of something gruesome, and then this normal-seeming wife who's either clueless or totally complicit. It's fragmentation, not just of place, but of people.
Yeah. Though later, the source does give us a more conventional reunion with Telemachus. He's recognized by the scar, again,
Always the scar.
and has his mother's eyes. And Ithaca kind of settles down. Odysseus becomes a level-headed lord.
So it ends up looking familiar.
It looks familiar, yes. But after showing us all those other possibilities, the illusion, the deeply strange, the violent overlap, you can't help but feel that even this stable ending is somehow provisional, you know? The path there was so warped, it makes you question the reality underneath.
Definitely. Makes you question the whole foundation.
Oh.
Okay, let's shift gears. From unstable homes to, well, Agamemnon's imperial court, which sounds completely bizarre in this
Well,
version.
it is vast. Teeming with people, viziers, consuls, 100 assassins,
Assassins.
plus beggars, arsonists, stranglers, sycophants, beyond all number, all just waiting for his command.
And why does he care about Odysseus? It's not some big political thing, is it?
No, that's what's so striking. The source says it's just paranoia, jealousy. He's obsessed with Odysseus' reputation for cleverness, a quality Agamemnon thinks should be his alone.
So power here is just petty insecurity.
Pretty much. Grand strategy reduced to obsessive jealousy. And the palace itself reflects this madness.
The throne's in a room made from a scuttled ship, and rooms keep caving in.
Yeah, sandslides, burying chambers, the palace growing deeper and deeper like an inverted castle. It's physically collapsing, mirroring Agamemnon's unstable mind and rule.
A kingdom built on sand, literally.
Exactly. It shows you how unstable power gets when it's all paranoia, no substance.
And he gives his sages this impossible task. Find the sum total of all wisdom.
Their first try is this enormous 1,000-page book. Covers everything, herring math, city languages, warfare, even gossip about numbers. Reads multiple ways.
Like a pre-internet search gone wild.
Totally. But Agamemnon looks at it and just says, this is not it. Not it at all. He wanted understanding, not just stuff. Information overload.
Yeah, it feels very modern, that anxiety, that search for one simple answer.
And he couldn't see the difference between knowledge and wisdom.
So the second quest, find wisdom in a single sentence. They come back, the palace is even deeper, Troy is changed, and they bring a dagger.
Inscribed with, and this too shall pass.
A classic. That should bring some comfort, right? Perspective.
It does, momentarily. Agamemnon finds comfort, but then even this is not enough. He can't be satisfied by just perspective. He wants something absolute, total control.
Because of the paranoia.
Exactly. It shows that insatiable desire for total knowledge, rejecting anything partial.
Leading to the final quest.
Yeah.
Find wisdom in a single word. The sages just disperse, take nothing.
An impossible task, that ultimate compression of meaning. It's a metaphor, isn't it? For that futile human urge to grasp everything, control everything in one simple package.
And Odysseus comes back alone, eventually.
Yeah.
The palace is just a kind of madness by then. He gives Agamemnon a silver ring, blue gem, tells him, look into the gem, sire. There is your word.
And Agamemnon looks and dies instantly.
Whoa. But
And that's the brilliance. The source leaves it totally ambiguous. Also not recorded is whether Odysseus had poisoned the ring or whether he had found the word and it sufficed.
so murder? Or did he find the absolute truth and it was just death?
Precisely. It's the perfect dark ending to that whole futile quest. The pursuit of absolute knowledge leads either to murder or, well, maybe some truths are lethal. Or maybe the seeking itself just ends you. Some things are maybe meant to be unknowable.
Wow. Okay. And this whole idea of stories changing, reality being fluid, that feeds right into how Mason reimagines the Trojan War itself.
Absolutely. The source suggests Homer isn't history. The epics are like divine books or archetypes, meaning there wasn't just one Trojan War. There were countless versions played out over and over according to an evolving aesthetic, like reflections in a warped hall of mirrors.
Okay, so our version is just one reflection.
Exactly. And it connects to this idea of Achaean chess, this ancient game, maybe an ancestor of ours, where pieces had names, histories. The Iliad becomes like a game transcript.
A primer for the game.
Yeah. And the Odyssey, maybe a fantastic parody of an endgame manual with the pieces just sort of running down. Entropy, Odysseus is just a piece inching across the crumbling board.
That changes how you see him. So myth isn't fixed history. It's more like a template that keeps changing.
A fluid template, yeah. Reflecting different things at different times.
And the heroes themselves are so different. Achilles still invulnerable except the heel, still fatalistic. But he dies from an adder bite.
And gangrene. Because he refused amputation.
That's so unheroic, mundane almost.
It completely strips away the epic glory, doesn't it? It grounds him in this gritty, maybe more realistic consequence of injury and just stubbornness. Mason seems to say even legends can have pretty bleak, ordinary ends.
And Odysseus gets creative. He makes a golem, A Myrmidon golem to stand in for Achilles.
Yeah, drags Patroclus's body and everything. Later, Odysseus effaces it, smears mud on its forehead, wipes out the word life.
Whoa. So magic or some kind of technology.
It brings in these elements, yeah. And the idea that life can be erased just by rubbing out a word, it's deeply unsettling. It really shows Odysseus using these, well, unnatural means and makes you question what life even means in this world.
Then Helen.
Yeah.
She's different too. More god than mortal.
Right. Veiled by Zeus, so men don't see her. They just see their own ideal of beauty projected onto her.
So she didn't cause the war. It was just men seeing what they wanted to see.
That's the implication. It shifts the blame, doesn't it? Makes the war about male perception, maybe divine meddling rather than her actions.
And her endings in these versions are brutal. Odysseus arranges for her to be scalped by a maze.
An assassination, yeah. Cold, calculated, no romance there.
And the other one, she's in Death's palace.
Yeah.
Death looks like Paris.
Uh-huh. Menelaus is dreaming, trying to get her back. But Odysseus gets sent by Quickness, this earlier version of Athena, maybe.
Quickness.
Yeah, sent to kill Helen because Quickness is implacable against death. Helen's just cold, indifferent. Odysseus kills her in the gloom.
These are dark fates, not romantic at all.
No, they're violent, almost meaningless. And Quickness being implacable, using mortals like tools. That's harsh divine indifference. And poor Menelaus, just hearing her voice from below in the afterlife, it's haunting.
So these stories just rip away the romantic varnish. Show something darker, crueler underneath.
Definitely. Even Odysseus's skills get reframed. His archery, coward's weapon, being a bard, Villain's profession.
Things looked down on by the warrior class.
Right. It shows he's not the standard hero. He operates outside that code. His many ways aren't always noble by their standards.
And deciding to go raiding after Troy instead of heading home.
Yeah, the source presents that as a choice. Turn pirate, basically, not just being blown off course.
So again, a darker, more opportunistic side. Pragmatic, maybe self-serving choices, not just fate.
Exactly. It complicates that simple hero narrative we usually get.
It really does. And speaking of complications, these journeys, Mason takes us to familiar places, but gives them this unexpected darkness or depth. Circe's Island, IA.
Right. Starts off hospitable, just like we know. But then Odysseus finds these faintly licentious outdoor revels. Or maybe even a savage spectacle.
Like Becky scenes. Naked woman, knife, dark stains.
Yeah. It adds this layer of menace, horror under the surface charm, like that wildness in the woods with Penelope, but island-wide. Mason keeps showing us this hidden, unsettling wildness just beneath the surface.
And the Sirens. So different. Not just temptresses.
No. Their first song shows Odysseus' past. The killing he did, meeting Penelope, leaving home. It offers release from displacement, escape into memory.
But he resists.
He does. But not out of strength, maybe. He finds delight at being lost and reckless. He prefers being adrift to revisiting the past.
So it's psychological. The trap is memory itself.
Yeah.
And he chooses being lost over going back there.
Right. It reframes his famous resistance. It's not about sex. It's about avoiding the potentially painful comfort of the past by embracing the chaos of the present.
And their second song.
That's the real kicker. An intricate counterpoint that shows him everything. Fate. Achilles marching to his death, Agamemnon, Priam, Hector, the gods pulling strings.
And his own role?
Yeah, it shows his own wit. His cleverness leads only to understanding his own helplessness.
Oof, that's bleak.
That's the terror of these sirens. They don't offer lies. They offer devastating, fatalistic truth. They show him human agency. Even his famous cleverness is ultimately useless against fate. They're prophets of doom, basically.
Wow, even Cyclops gets a different perspective in the source.
Yeah.
From his point of view.
Yeah. Living alone, doing his philosophizing, annoyed by these rude guests eating his food, then blinded by nobody.
It humanizes him, doesn't it? Or at least makes him understandable. Changes it from just hero versus monster.
It complicates it, makes you maybe question the hero's intrusion. Mason challenges that simple binary by giving the monster a voice.
And then, after being blinded, he adapts, finds calm.
Surprisingly, yes. Finds calm, even gratitude. Says sight would be a distraction. Starts telling his own stories.
So the thing Odysseus did to him, the blinding, it leads him to some kind of peace or wisdom.
It's an unexpected outcome. It subtly questions Odysseus' victory, suggests that suffering inflicted by the hero can actually lead to unexpected peace or different perspectives for the victim in this world.
And there's that other story mentioned, Pale. Loses his family, seeks bright lands, meets a sea woman, disappears ambiguously.
Yeah, another layer of journeys being uncertain, marked by loss, ending unclearly. Did he find his goal? Did he drown? We don't know. It just reinforces that quests in these lost books often lack clear purpose or resolution. They're defined by loss and ambiguity.
It really does complicate things. And that feeling, that uncertainty, it just deepens later on, especially around memory and reality. Odysseus's memory of the Trojan War.
Yeah.
It's like a dream. Disconnected images.
Exactly. The source says even Ithaca becomes just images that could fit almost anywhere.
So memory is totally unreliable. After trauma, displacement,
Mm-hmm.
it just falls apart.
It seems so. And if your core memories, even of home, become fragmented, interchangeable, what does that do to your sense of self? Mason uses memory's instability to show our past isn't fixed. It's fragile, easily broken or rearranged, undermines identity itself.
And there's that other memory or story about a Phoenician nurse abducting him as a child.
Right, intending to take him home, but she dies at sea, and he arrives in Ithaca as a slave.
That changes everything. He's not the noble prince, he's a former slave.
It completely reframes his identity, his claim to the throne, makes it much darker. Mason's not afraid to rewrite the absolute basics, suggesting identity can just be circumstance and trauma, not just bloodline.
And Penelope later on. After the suitors, she retreats to her garden, gets lonely, and visitors turn into statues, like Medusa.
Yeah, it's a really striking, tragic image. Whether it's literal magic or symbolic, it suggests this deep isolation, maybe a hardening from trauma, that turns others away, turns them to stone.
And Hermes calls her Medusa. Yeah.
Which really emphasizes that transformation into something maybe less human, damaged. It shows how waiting, trauma can change even the most loyal figure, turning loneliness into something destructive.
And Odysseus, in old age, famous, rich son, but not happy.
Yeah. Storytelling replaces actual memory. He doesn't remember what really happened anymore, and he grieves Athena's absence.
So sex means nothing inside.
Seems that way. The performance of his own myth takes over genuine memory. He's disconnected from himself, and losing that divine guidance leaves him adrift. Mason paints this picture of a hero whose fame rings hollow. Family, wealth, don't fill the void left by lost purpose, lost connection.
His final journey, going back to the islands,
Yeah.
it sounds so desolate.
It really is. Phoenicia's abandoned, fearful. Calypso's island is smaller, empty, weary. Circe's place is burned down, haunted.
He doesn't even visit the Cyclops cave, just sees a skeleton.
Yeah, sees a giant skeleton with tusks in the cliff, has no heart to visit the cave. These aren't nostalgic trips. They're encounters with absence, decay. The vibrant places of his youth are just empty, haunted shells.
Reflecting him, maybe?
Perhaps. It shows returning to the past doesn't bring comfort here, just reveals loss and decay. Time moves on irrevocably.
He goes back to Troy, too. Finds walls, guards, ghosts. Finds a shield, throws it in the sea. Feels a light heart.
Feels like letting go, maybe? Shedding the burden of the war? But it's a melancholy kind of closure, achieved by discarding the past, not really reconciling with it.
And then there are those scenarios that seem almost completely detached, like Mr. O in the sanatorium.
Right. War stars, fragmented memories, isolated. Doctors trying to expunge memory or go deeper. He gets left behind. Finds a horse drawing, red hair, echoes of the myth, but disconnected.
Like a modern psychological take.
Yeah.
Trauma-shattering identity.
Exactly. Mason uses these modern settings, sanatoriums, therapy, to explore the psychological wreckage of that kind of journey. Identity broken down into just symbols.
And the Book of Winter guy. Amnesia, endless winter, finds a scar. Finds a book that makes memory fade into white noise.
Another really powerful image of isolation and memory loss. The scar is there, the physical trace, but trying to recover the story actually destroys it. A bleak idea that sometimes seeking lost memories just obliterates them.
And the very end, or an end, in hell or the afterlife, walking a steel cable over an abyss.
Balancing with an oar, yeah. Thinking about judgment, how plans are futile, the longing just to fall, and remembering Troy only once a generation.
That's dark. No Elysian fields.
No, just eternal precarious balance, futility, isolation, the faintest echo of his past. It suggests his ultimate fate isn't rest, but this constant uncertainty reflecting his whole life and the shifting stories about him.
And tying it all together, that mention of Alexander the Great on his deathbed.
Yeah, identifying himself not as Achilles, his usual hero, but as Odysseus of endless contrivance.
Seeing his empire as built on sand, longing for home, expecting death from the sea.
It's striking. Alexander the Conqueror feels like the unsettled, wily Odysseus in the end. Recognizing his achievements are transient, feeling displaced even with all his power, it suggests that Odyssean's state of being lost, uncertain. It's not just mythic, it's human.
Wow. Mason connects the myth right to history,
Yeah,
suggesting even conquerors feel that longing for an uncertain home, see their works as temporary.
exactly.
Well, this deep dive into Zachary Mason's Lost Books of the Odyssey, it's certainly been a journey. Through some startling, beautiful, often really dark alternative takes on a story we thought we knew.
They absolutely challenge your expectations, don't they? About myth, heroes, identity, memory, fate. All of it. It really shows the power of retelling stories, how these ancient narratives can still hit you in new, unsettling ways.
Yeah, it really underlines the value of looking into these hidden corners,
Mm,
these other possibilities that exist within the stories we know so well.
absolutely. And it leaves you with a pretty powerful thought to chew on, I think. Well, if the definitive story of a hero like Odysseus, one of the most famous tales ever, can be so uncertain, so varied, so full of contradictions, what does that suggest about the other stories we believe?
The stories about ourselves,
Hmm.
about history, the world around us.
Exactly. If even that story isn't fixed, what is?
Something to ponder long after this deep dive ends. Thanks for joining us.
Until next time.